My name is Joseph Kuuire, and I am a journalist and also the editor and creator of Techlabari.
Okay.
So Techlabari is an online news platform which covers technology in Ghana, and we also cover the Africa space as well. The reason we started Techlabari because we found out there was no space or no platform which covers tech specifically in Ghana as far as the ecosystem. There was no coverage of who the entrepreneurs are. There was no coverage of who are the big players in fintech or agri-tech. So we decided to just publish more stories on that. And from 2017, we've grown from a very small platform to, I think, one of the most recognized brands as far as tech news in Ghana. I think it's grown exponentially. I mean, in 2017, there was some talks about, fintech and everything else, but from 2017, tech has grown all over the world. If you look at where we are now, especially with AI,
Yeah.
tech it's very ubiquitous. It's everywhere you go, whether you like it or not. In every market, whether it's Africa, Europe, or even Americas, tech is playing a big, big role in everything. Whether it's
Yes.
crypto, I talk about AI, but now in Africa, we're growing as well. There's a lot
Yeah.
of players coming in, whether it's in AI or, like I said before, even crypto, stable coins and everything is also a big topic.
Yes.
So when you think about the ecosystem, we've grown big. So now you've seen governments even leveraging technology in their day-to-day activities, trying to build more digital platforms to help civil service and also just citizens, get work done, whether it's taxes, public transportation, and just finance. Even banks are even jumping on board. So we've seen that tech is a big deal now. People are really looking to find out what's happening in the next space. AI again is going to be a big topic in 2025. So
Yes.
it's a big deal. I think last year there were a lot of news items about this startup raised this money, this startup did that. But I think this year especially, we're going to see more of a focus on, okay, who's actually bringing value when it comes to AI? Are you just a platform that I just type in a prompt and things come out? Or are you a company who's actually helping me be more efficient in my business? Bringing in more customers using AI platforms. So I think this year, we're going to see that people who started doing good projects here and there to see more companies do more focused business values for whether it's for banks, for consumers, small businesses. You're going to see more of that. So I don't think it's going to be a buzzword, but we're going to see more practical use and business sense when it comes to AI. But I think mobile money is still a big deal. Still one of the things that I think we replicate really, really well in Africa. In Ghana, especially. I think Ghana, I saw some data from some platform. I think fintech called Paystack in Ghana. I think they reported last year, 2023, that most of the transactions, about 90% of them was made through mobile money,
Oh, yes.
which shows you that, the other methods like cards or bank payments, they're still in infancy, but mobile money is really the biggest driver when it comes to movement of money across different spaces, whether
Yeah.
paying for small businesses or things like that. The fact that I can just send money through my mobile phone to one
Yes.
person and just type in the amount, press send,
Yes.
and just goes like that. It's instantly. I
Yes.
think it's a really big deal, and I think they haven't scratched the surface because if you look at maybe even the francophone market, if they're able to tap into cross-border trade or cross-border payments using mobile money, I think then, the sky is the limit because that means if somebody's living in Cote d'Ivoire wants to send money to Ghana, all they have to do is have a phone number, type the amount, to
Yes.
press send, and boom.
Which,
So I think it's one of the best things that's come out of Africa, especially as far as, technology based. I think we haven't scratched the surface because if there's somebody's able to tap into pull money from outside, for instance, in the US, when they send money to somebody and you can use it through mobile money platform, then you're basically solving a whole bunch of cross-border payments issues.
issues, yes.
Yeah, so I think mobile money is a big, big deal. It's still in the upswing. I think this year it's probably going to be bigger if you see more advancements. I think there's a lot of, industry players who are trying to talk to like government and regulators to try to find ways to make the space better. I think before that comes in, you mentioned the FinTech Association in Ghana. I think they are definitely looking at lobbying more government to actually and regulators to look at how can we make this space a little more easier
Yeah.
for, mobile networks,
Yes.
banks, and all these other stakeholders to play well together. I think, for instance,
Yes.
if you look at, I think, was it 2 years ago, they passed the e-levy bill. which basically places a tax on mobile money transfers. I think it's been reduced from that space. And even this year is going to be removed, I think, because of the new government. So if you look at the lobbying efforts by the industry players, I think it's working very well. I think there's going to be more conversations with the regulators and the space about how do we make everything easier. So we can see more synergy. Maybe there might be more integration, maybe more API uses of from the MTNs, which can connect easier to the banks, we can connect easier to the fintech players. So we're going to see more. I think we're going to see more of that. So yeah, I think we're going to see more of that. So more easier ways to connect to either fintechs, more easier way to connect to telcos, easier way to connect to the banks. So we're going to see a little more synergy because even the past year, there was no, I guess, synergy between even the mobile networks. But now, as an MTN person, you can send money to Vodafone more easier. So I think we're going to see that type of same infrastructure take place with banks, mobile money networks, and regulators. I think there's an issue with bureaucracy when it comes to different African countries. I mean, as you mentioned with AFTA, that's is still having some issues when it comes to integration across African countries. They had this platform called the PAPS, which is basically having payment move across different African countries due to payment. But the issue with PAPS, I think, is that it should be to the banks. And if for instance, I have mobile money, I have an account there and I want to send money. I don't know why I can't use that PAP system to easily send mobile monies from my country to another country. So I think it's a matter of regulation and also bureaucracy. So I think African countries need to have a sit down and talk to the banks and the telcos, which I think are a major deal. But MTN covers almost 60%, I think, of the African continent. So why can't they talk to MTN? Why can't they talk to maybe Airtel or Orange and Francophone countries to see how can we create this unique platform where mobile money works across each country who make payments? Because if I'm a SME, I'm not sending maybe a huge amount of money to the banks. I want to pay my supplier some amount of money, which is not so high. So why do I have to go to the banks, which may charge me a higher fee or something to make that payment? I'm an SME. I'm looking at my customized service fees. So if it's through mobile money, it may actually attract a lower fee. That might be beneficial. So I think what needs to happen is there needs to be more synergy between African countries and governments to see how do we have less regulation, have more synergy between telcos, banks, and have more integration where, mobile money can be a part of that money distribution. I think tech journalism is even harder because you are more in one particular sector. I think even broad, when it comes to journalism, it's about access to data. For instance, if you're not a public company, it's hard to find information about what the company does as far as revenue shares, even the number of employees. We don't really know because it's a private company. They don't have to share that information. But I can go to MTN website and look at the shareholder numbers and say, okay, they made this amount of money this year. I think that's the issue with tech journalism or journalism, just access to data. If you want to write a story about, a specific sector in Ghana, telecom, for instance, I have to go here, I have to ask somebody, do they know the numbers? Do I have to ask here? It's not readily available. So as you were saying, trying to find information or do a review about one company, which may sink them or even improve their shares, it's hard because the inaccessibility to data is still a big issue. But I think it can be improved. I think right now, government is trying to, do more, right? Request to information. I can actually request an information from a government agency about the numbers in their sector. So I can get that information. It's still not as mature, but it's getting there. Yeah. So as a journalist or tech journalist, it's still a long journey. You're still struggling trying to get network, build network, get information from those networks, and publish a story to make it more or cover the system a bit more efficiently. But yeah, it's still a long journey. It's still challenges to get over. Last 5 years, I think we're getting more access to, other markets. I think beforehand it used to be very internal. People were talking to each other. I think now what's happening is that we're getting more access to maybe foreign firms, more VCs and things that are coming and just trying to figure out what's happening in this space. So we get more people coming in from other countries. For instance, I know Nigerian, you have some startups coming in Ghana, setting up shop and actually expanding. So that builds a network, which is great for us. And, more hubs are also appearing in Ghana as tech hubs. So there's more training of, entrepreneurs about what to look for or how to build their product better. I know Mess, not Water School played a big factor in that.
Yes.
And that's, kind of opened up more hubs to even train more entrepreneurs to look for more funding outside Ghana, which is great. And also our companies are also expanding outside, Agritech is expanding to, Lome in Togo, Cote d'Ivoire as well, Burkina Faso. Some have expanded to East African countries like Rwanda, Kenya.
Yeah.
So I think right now we started small, being in our own space to now expanding to across other markets. They're going towards, African countries. Even setting up shop in the US, they register, they go to Y Combinator, they set up shop there, raise VC money from US VC firms, come back to Africa and build or expand more. So I think we started very small, but now we're expanding more and more and more, getting more access, getting more external networks, and building more capacity. In the past years, I think we're seeing more governments. We're seeing more governments trying to invest locally. So for an example, a good example I can tell is that the government really recently built this government platform for civil service. So if you're a consumer, you can just go online, log in, and pay your tax online. And that platform was built using just local ecosystem players to build that platform. Usually beforehand, they would consult outside players to come in, look at the system and build it. But now I think there's more of a move towards using local talent to build more local infrastructure as far as tech goes. And then also as far as even data storage, I think we're trying now to even build our own like local data storage cloud infrastructure, where now we the country hold all the data instead of looking at our data is stored in somewhere in Europe or America. So we're trying to build that capacity locally. We're still trying to get there to build more. But yeah, more investment is going local. I think even some EV players for electric vehicle players, for instance, in Ghana, they're getting incentives or tax breaks to even import parts and build it here locally. So building it locally and importing it. So I think there's more incentives going into that space as well. So to answer your question, yes, I mean, there's some things happening. There needs to be more to build more local capacity and local infrastructure. So more investment. I know this income government has said they're going to create this fund. As you know, I should talk about the AI fund. They're creating a fintech fund where it's like, okay, if you're a local fintech player, you can tap into that fund and build local capacity and expand. So I think government has the right idea, trying to invest more locally instead of looking outside. I'm hoping that, right now and more in the future, we use more local talent to build our local infrastructure, whether it's government, whether it's tech, whether it's fintech. I think we should look more into building local than looking outside of the Chinese or the Europeans and Americans to build things for us. Talking about what media needs to do better, I think there needs to be more partnership with the media and the local players here. I think in Ghana, especially, there hasn't been lots of, close partner relationships. Usually what happens is company says we have a press release, can you publish this for us? But there's no more of how do we build content together? How do we come to your company and see what you guys are building, or how you're even building it? There's nothing like that. So I think there needs to be more close partnership. Let's do more documentary making, content. Like, how did you build this, electric bike? How did you build this electric vehicle? Or how do you even code this fintech platform? And you're now, having almost 10 million users. How does that work? So I think we need to go behind the scenes more as far as media players and talk to these people about how they're even doing that. With me, what I try to do is, the podcasting phase, talk to more local entrepreneurs about how they even build their businesses. So in the future, for me, I'm still trying to look at how best to even leverage what we have. As you said, we're using AI to tell more stories now, more precise, because nowadays we're competing with, the TikToks of the world, X platform, because they're getting news in small bits and sizes. So we're trying to see how can we also use AI to actually give people those bits and sizes. But on the other hand, we're trying to also see how do we build content that still tells stories about what's happening in Ghana. So on our newsletter platform, for instance, we're doing more deep dives. So looking into different sectors and using data to find out what does this particular sector look like? How much money has it raised? What's the future look like? So we're trying to do more data visualizations to see, you can see the data and what it looks like. So how we're growing, how much money somebody's making over the years, and seeing the impact. Trying to get more employee numbers. Are you actually hiring people from the local sector and building up capacity? And if you're doing that, how much revenue are you making? So we're trying to grab data from different sources, put all together and create this holistic story so they can realize what it is. We've been doing this for 7 years. This will be our 8th year. And we're still trying to figure out what is the best avenue for us to grow in. Like, do we start looking at more video making? How do we even do that? How do we even raise money? Because even with journalism, revenue is an issue. Right now, we're fighting with eyeballs and attention. So how do you start raising money and, building that? So as far as the future for Techlabari, it's still, I guess, up in the air. We're still looking at best ways to do things. I think one of the ways we're going to do this year is build more community. And that's hopefully trying to do more in-person events. So we get people to actually come and discuss what's happening in this space. If you can get a podcast out of it, a video out of it, we can have more content. You tell me a story about what's happening in our space, which is good. So again, it's a lot of things to do, lots of work, especially in journalism. It's not easy, but we're trying. We're trying to be that platform that's, you go and find out what's happening because we're trying to be this historical archive. You can go back in history and see what has happened in the space maybe in 2017, and they can compare it to 2025. What's happening in that space? You can see the difference. The future is still bright. Leveraging technologies, whether it's video, AI, whatever, to actually still create that content to make sure people understand and be informed of what's happening in the space. If I had that mandate or that power, one thing I would definitely look at is, building more local capacity and talent, or involving more local talent when it comes to building our solution. One thing I've written about in the past is how, in the US and UK, I've noticed that even Singapore, Asian market, I've noticed that they are using more local talent to build more government projects.
Yeah.
So whether it's building websites which is for finance or even paying taxes, things like that, they're using more local talent to build it and being very open with their data. So one thing I would do is definitely try to leverage that and say, how do we take our own talent and bring them into government and build services because they understand the market more. They've scaled before. They have customers that they understand. So how do they use their information that's them to build locally? That's one thing. Another thing I'll look at is regulation. Sometimes I think regulation is a good thing, but sometimes it can be very restrictive. Somebody wants to come to the space, they want to build quickly, scale up, but they're running into so many hurdles. Requesting, filling out forms, which takes so much time. I know of a fintech that said they took about 3 months, 6 months before they got a license to operate. And, I think can be a big disincentive. So for me, I'll look at regulation to find out how do we make regulation a bit easier. Yes, you can come to the market, you can start operations, but you still have to keep an eye on you to make sure you're following parameters to make sure that you're not doing anything off the books. But yeah, I think regulation is something you can look at as far as deregulating or just trying to make sure it's more efficient for more players to come into the space and build here locally. The last thing I would look at is, I think I would look at, looking at the African executive system. How do we partner more with other African countries or more other Ministry of Communication and Technology in other countries to make sure that we can easily have workers move back and forth to work locally? So for instance, do we need to look at, more nomad visas to bring tech workers from Kenya to work in Ghana, things like that? Because there's a lot of knowledge sharing when that happens. So how can our Ghanaian workers go to maybe South Africa, gain knowledge, work there, and even come back to Ghana to build things locally? So yeah, I think those three things when it comes to maybe by the power is more deregulation, more local talent building, and then trying to work more across the African countries with different governments.